everybody, and welcome to Career Girl Chats Season 2. My name is Anna O, and I am the founder of Career Girl Lifestyle. For those of you who are not familiar with Career Girl Lifestyle, we are a community for ambitious women who want to win, and our mission is to empower women with the tools that they need to thrive not only in their careers, but in life. For the next 16 weeks, I will be hosting Career Girl Chats where I sit down with professional women in various industries to discuss career, business, and life lessons that have molded them. I'm really excited about this season because we have such an amazing lineup of women who I cannot wait to talk to. And we will also be touching on some topics that we have not touched on in season 1, such as love, relationships, health, nutrition, finance. Well, we're talking about finance today, but real estate, I do not want to give too much away, but this season is definitely one to watch. So if you are not subscribed to our brand new YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe today to Career Girl Lifestyle. Now today we will be talking about the topic of mastering financial wellness, and we have just the perfect person to have this discussion with. Today, we will be joined by Jully-Alma Taveras, aka the J.Lo of Personal Finance. Now, before I join Julie to the chat, I just want to read you some of her credentials so that you can see why she is more than qualified to have this discussion with us tonight. So, Jully-Alma Taveras is an award-winning personal finance writer, producer, and speaker. She is the founder and CEO of Investing Latina, as well as the host of one of the top YouTube finance channels, Ask Me Money Things, where she provides ideas, tips, and tricks on how you can be financially powerful by investing. And live tonight, we will be talking to Julie, and she will be getting us right as we ask her all things money. So let me join Julie to the chat.
Hi.
Hi, Julie. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you for the intro.
Did I do well? Did I represent you well?
And I'm excited for the season. Like, oh my God,
Yes.
so many topics. It's so awesome. I can't wait to tune into all of them.
Yes, and I'm very excited to have you as our first guest for season 2. So thank you so much for joining us for Career Girl Chats. I love your backdrop. It's very
Thank
New York.
you. Yes, it's New York. I'm from New York, girl, so I have to
Yes,
my city.
yes. All right, so Julie, who is the J.Lo of Personal Finance, and how did she become the Investing Latina?
I love that. My story really began because I started investing when I was 19 years old, and that's really kind of where the inspiration behind the work that I do now for Investing Latina. But aside from that, Julie, I was born in the Dominican Republic. I moved to New York with my parents when I was 4 years old, and to Brooklyn, New York, and it was a hustle. Hey, hey Brooklyn, what's up? It was the hustle, the hustler spirit that we adopted by being here, by moving to New York and pushing through, and as immigrants learning how the system worked and how to build businesses. And I got a lot of inspiration from my parents, and they really inspire the work that I do today as an entrepreneur. So I also ended up studying fashion, merchandising, and economics in school. And that's really where my wheels started turning in terms of things that I really enjoy, which includes like creative things, and then also how economics moves the world. So eventually, like I've worked in fashion for over 16 years, and now I started Investing Latina almost 2 years ago. We're gonna go on to 2 years very soon. And I know it's been a lot of fun. It's been awesome. My mission really is to just educate people on how to get started with investing, or how to lean further into their investing journey, because it's not something that we grow up learning in school. There aren't a lot of money conversations at dinner tables at home. So those are the types of things that inspire me and lead me to wanting to push this message forward for everyone.
Yes, I love it. And I'm so captivated by your story because it's so similar to mine because I come from the same background. I mean, born and raised in New York City. I can definitely see you clearly with that hustler spirit. But I also come from a fashion background. And one of the biggest misconceptions about fashion, especially when you go to a fashion school, is that we're just sitting down like with drawing illustrations or we're behind like sewing machines, but people don't understand there's a whole world of business even in fashion. So I love what you're doing with Investing Latina, and I love that you're showing that, yeah, I went to a fashion school, but I'm definitely business savvy and I can help you too.
Yes,
um,
absolutely. There's business in everything that we can think about, every single industry. So it's really important, when you're thinking about choosing a career and what you're going to do, to kind of keep in mind how that business functions. And I've had the
Absolutely.
privilege of working with really great people within the industry and managing multi-million dollar businesses. And it's all been a beautiful learning experience that everything that I've taken from those experiences I apply every day. So it's really awesome.
Absolutely. So, how quick was your learning curve into the world of finance and investing? And what resources did you use to equip yourself with the basic knowledge that you needed?
Yeah, so I would say that it was kind of a steep curve. It wasn't extremely easy to really go from the mindset that I had early on in life, where it was just like, make money, do what you got to do to earn more. Like that was really the mindset that I grew up around, and what I wanted to do and why I pushed so hard in my career and what I did. But we never had the conversations of, okay, now that you have the money, what do you actually do with it, right? So
Right.
it was tough to kind of figure all of that out on my own, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I ended up really kind of messing up my credit and having a lot of consumer debt, that I really didn't think was such a big deal at first. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I guess everybody does it, right? And that
Right.
was the mentality that I later on realized was the toxic mentality around money, that it's okay that everyone does it, that having debt wasn't a big deal. But I realized that even though a lot of people might live that way, it wasn't how I wanted to live. And so I really started to pay down my debt and get really organized, and I had to learn really how to say no to things and to people. And I think that that's part of the journey when it comes to learning how to manage your money, how to master your money, is being able to recognize what are the things that I really truly value and want to spend money on,
Mhm.
and not just because everyone else is doing it, but really because it's what I want for my life. And then kind of taking it from there. So for me, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but it happened. And the good thing is that I mentioned that I started investing really young,
Mhm.
not knowing what it was all about, but I participated. And that's such an important part. That's the first step that you have to take, is to make sure that you're participating, that you're in the game, so that you can learn along the way. And I did a lot of learning along the way. And eventually, I kind of been able to master. And the thing about it is that you go through changes in life that are always going to end up adjusting what your strategy is. What, like, if we think about what happened last year, who could have predicted that, right?
Right.
Who could have predicted that millions of people would have lost their jobs from one day to the next? And so you kind of have to just work around those things, and push through, and challenge yourself a lot of times to do more than what you even imagined that you could.
Right. I like the fact that you said you have to participate, right? It's a lifestyle change. Like you're not just going to be able to wake up and start saying no to things. You have to gradually build yourself up to that and start doing things day by day, to make sure that you are securing that financial wellness that we're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
So when did you realize that it was time for you to transition from a student to a teacher? And how did you know you could effectively help others?
So I've always been a teacher. That's like something about me that I've always just had. I've always loved to share the things that I've learned. I've always surrounded myself with people that knew more than I did. And I've always turned around to teach the people that didn't know as much as I did. And I've been teaching here at FIT, the school that we both went to. Hey, shout out to
Yes.
my FIT people. I've been teaching there for 5 years, and I love, love, love teaching. And even before I was teaching there officially, I was a teaching assistant even while I attended college. So I really just enjoyed the exchange that occurs between someone that teaches a subject and someone that's learning a subject, because it's so eye-opening. And always what I've also recognized is that every time that I teach, based on what their ideas are, what the person that I'm teaching, what they think about and how they view things, I also learn from that. And I think that's so awesome. And it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I love doing it. And eventually, after starting investing in Latina, people were asking, "Oh, can you, have something? Can you do a workshop?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of a good idea." And I procrastinated it for a long time because there were
Mm.
so many other things, and then the pandemic hit and all these kinds of things. I was traveling last year, so I didn't do it immediately when I was getting the request for it, but I did launch it 3.5 months ago, and it's been amazing. So the investing workshop is like just a place where people come to really start to understand how the system functions, the types of accounts that you open, what kind of tax breaks we have based on accounts. So really all of the fundamentals that can set you up to build your own individual strategy. So it's pretty new. It's my baby, honestly, and I love it so much. But in general, like teaching for me has always been a really big passion, and I enjoy it a lot.
I love it. Well, speaking of teaching, everyone, class is now in session. So make sure you have your well, you can't have your notepad on your phones because we're on our phones, but make sure
Yeah,
you have some type of writing tool
I have my
because
little notepad.
Yes, Julie is about to school us. So, Julie, what does financial wellness and freedom look like? Because we always hear the term, but I don't think a lot of us really understand what it means. So, can you just let us know what is the basic definition of financial wellness and financial freedom?
Yes. So when it comes to financial wellness, I really do think that it has to do with being able to understand your basic needs, right? What are the things that you need in order to survive, in order to live a fulfilled type of life? And I created something that's called the survival number. And that number is based on those necessities that we have as humans, which is food, shelter, personal care, and even entertainment. All these things are necessities. These are things that our brain requires and craves. And so for me, building that survival number was really instrumental in terms of how I looked at life. And I think it really brought a lot of financial wellness to my life, because I recognized what were the things that I really didn't need. What were the things that were always extra and maybe excessive, and in a lot of ways wasteful. That's something that I really like to talk about as well, because I really don't like to waste things. I don't like to take advantage of resources that we have. I like to be very mindful of what we use, what I personally use, and I like to remind people to just keep in mind that they should be mindful of the things they use. So I think that's what financial wellness has to do with. When we talk about financial independence and financial freedom, that is a little bit more going above and beyond and thinking about, okay, what are the things that beyond my survival, what is the place that I need to be at financially, from a numbers perspective, to be able to really not have to work or do things that require me to work and earn money. And so when it comes to financial independence and freedom, it's kind of like you build yourself up to the point where you really don't have to do things maybe like your 9 to 5, right? And you can kind of step away from it because you've developed such a cushion in your finances that you can really do things that you have always wanted to do. And for some people, there's a disconnect. Like there's the things that they do on a regular basis on 9 to 5 that they maybe are not passionate about or enjoy. And then there are things that they are passionate about that they want to do eventually. So when you are in that situation where there is a disconnect, you don't feel free. You don't feel
Right.
like you are living your best life, right?
I
You
think that's a lot of people.
yeah, you feel like, it's just kind of like you're trying to get by, and you're kind of struggling in a sense just to get to a better place in life. So I think that when there is that disconnect, people really reach for that financial freedom, and they're like, you know what, this isn't the ideal situation for me. This isn't what I'm passionate about or what I love to do for work, but I'm going to do what I have to do because I can earn money from this and earn a lot of money from this and build myself up to financially be stable and then eventually be free.
Right. So you mentioned in the beginning a survival number, right? How do we come up with that number? What do we base that number off of?
Yes, so the survival number is really a handful of categories, and it is really your basics, your needs. And I include housing, and I include food, and I include dining out, because I think it's really unrealistic to say, "Oh, I'm
Right.
never gonna dine out." We do, because
Especially as a millennial.
yes, and we've grown up in a society where dining out is a family thing, that
Right.
we're taken out by our parents as a treat to go somewhere. So I think that that's something that's really important and fundamental as part of the survival number. Also, healthcare and self-care, and then the last thing that's on that list is entertainment, because I think that we all should have the make this we should always make the space to have fun in life. Of course, we work really hard and there's things that we have to do, a lot of responsibilities that we have to cover, but you always need a little break. And so, how do you enjoy life? And in a simple way, like for me, the only thing that's in the survival number in terms of entertainment is my Spotify account. I love music. I like to listen to music. It relaxes me. It also gets me excited. I can exercise to music. So that's something that's important to me. And I include it there because it's a minimal type of cost. Spotify is like $10 a month. Unless you have a family plan, then you can hack it and it could be less. But you can definitely include those types of things because as humans, those are the things that we need. And everybody's going to be a little bit different. Somebody
Right.
might not value music as much as they would value probably TV, and entertainment and movies, for example. So you have to really kind of think about what are the things that I enjoy, that I like, and what do I use to take a break from the world and my regular day to day. So that's the survival number for me. I wrote an article for Next Advisor for Time Magazine about it, and we can link it in stories after this live, so you guys can check it out. It includes the things that I spend on, and my personal survival number happens to be $581, which is really really low, and it's not like average, but you can read the article to find out like what my hacks are to really keep it that low. And what that allows me to do is allows me to spend the rest of the money that I have available to me in ways that I want. And investing is one of those big ways that
Right.
I talk about this all the time. And for me, that's really important because I do want to build that life of financial independence.
So you mentioned that you started your journey to mastering financial wellness after accumulating a lot of debt, right? You're working in the fashion industry, you want to look great, and you also mentioned you became somewhat of a shopaholic,
I
right?
know I did.
What were the early steps that you took to get yourself to a healthier place financially?
Yes. And you know what? Before we go into what I did, I want to actually share something that I don't feel like I really talk about when I've talked about this topic before, is what really got me to that place. So I think that that's kind of important because there might be somebody in the situation where this might be where they're at right now. And really, when it came to my shopping addiction that I developed, it had a lot to do with exploring myself and exploring my interests and what I like and what looked good on me and what didn't. And I was able to really learn from those experiences. And it cost me a pretty penny, but I really want to also let people know that it was part of my youth. I was growing up, I was figuring life out, I was I had my first big job after graduating, and I was like, oh, I need to look like a boss. Let me buy me a Chanel bag. So I for people that are in that situation, first of all, I never want them to feel shame and feel like, you know, this is, how could I do this? This was horrible, because that's really how I felt, right? And in hindsight, I wish I didn't feel that way. And that's the advice that I would give to someone that might be in the situation right now. Like, don't feel ashamed of it. Just understand what you did and why you did it, and move on, because we do things in life when we need to do them, right? When we feel like it's a necessity and it's something that is going to ignite us, for example. And it did that for me, you know, for many years. But the thing about it is that not knowing the management of finances and balancing that out with, you know, my exploration and my getting to know myself and having fun, I really didn't find that balance. And I think that in order for people to find a better balance and to try their best to improve a situation where they might be overspending, is to look at the things that you do have and be grateful for the things that you do have. Because if you keep your mind stuck in this mentality of, I need more, I'm not fulfilled, I have to acquire more things, I have to look different, then it becomes something that is a habit that will be harder and harder to shake off later on in life. So I think that that was one of the things that helped me get past that stage in life, where I was just like, you know, the things, I have a lot of great things. I don't need to continue to buy more. I don't need to continue, you know, shopping and going crazy and overspending. So, shifting my mind to that sense of gratitude was really helpful. And at the end of the day, you got to do the numbers. You can't ignore those numbers. Like, if you're spending more than what you're making, you're in a deficit, like, that is only going to take you so far until you're going to be completely feel like you're completely drowning. And, you know, if you are on a path where that's happening, my best advice to you is to kind of take a step back, you know, put yourself in the position where, okay, if something were to happen, if I, for example, something that's really important to me is family. If something were to happen to somebody in my family and I needed money to help them out, what would I do right now? You know, and if you don't have a savings account, if you don't have some cash reserve, you're not going to be able to help somebody that you love if they're in a situation where you need to help them. And so I think that was also something that helped me reframe how I was spending, what I was spending on, so that I can really be better and be someone that can support the people that I love. Because I think it's safe to say that we love the people around us. We love our family,
Right.
and we would always choose our family over things, right? Or
Mhm.
clothing or shoes. So that was something that was really helpful. That kind of helped me kind of change things around. And it did. I was able to kind of get out of debt. It took time. I'm not, it took time, y'all. It took a lot of time, and I had to like get really serious and cut back on the dining out, the nice restaurants, all those things. And like
Right.
I mentioned a little earlier, you have to say no to friends sometimes. You have to say no to situations that you truly cannot afford, right? If you're in debt, you should not be going out all the time.
Right.
You should be scaling back. You should be cooking at home. You should be
Mhm.
finding other ways to enjoy life than constantly spending.
Absolutely. And if your friends really rock with you, they'll understand that too, right?
Yeah.
I always tell my friends, like, it's much cuter to have $5,000 in the bank than $5,000 on my shoes or my
Yeah.
shoulder. You know, someone said priorities. So it's all
Yeah.
about the priorities. Um, so when it comes to creating financial action plans, how
Mhm.
do we create one that promotes financial wellness? Like, what are the components that go into creating a financial action plan? Like, let's say we're starting from scratch, you know, we've just been blindly spending, we don't have any structure to how we do things. Where do we start?
I really like to start looking at what you've done before and try to find patterns of the things that you've done. So what I ended up doing was I ended up downloading the yearly statement of the previous year when I started to kind of like get my life organized and have all these ideas of, okay, I need to get out of this. And when I started getting serious about it, not only just having the idea of, oh, I need to get out of this, but still doing what you were doing, I really looked back at my statements. I looked at where my spending, what my pain points were, like what I spent the most on. And in my situation, it was, of course, the shopping and the clothes and the accessories and the shoes. And then secondly, it was food, a lot of dining out. And, even just grocery, too much overspending even on groceries, which is a big thing for me now. I really do not do that. I only buy the things that I need. My fridge usually is pretty empty. I buy food for a couple days and I keep it like that. And when I see that the fridge is empty, I go back out and I buy more food.
I'm actually the same way. So you're
Really?
making me feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I just buy what I need for the week, and then at the end of the week, I just grocery shop for the next week.
Yeah. And especially like for me being single, it's like you don't really need to have a bunch of food in stock. When you have kids and other people in the house, it does make sense because there's more mouths to feed. But for single people, it just doesn't really make sense to have like a full pantry of all kinds of things. Essentially, I think that going back to how you spend is going to be really helpful because that's where you're going to start to attack and start to say, okay, if I spend, and I'm going to hypothetically $500 a month on clothes and $500 a month on food, what can I do the following month to not do that? Because obviously we're talking about change, right? We want to change what we're doing. We want to change our habits. So using that as a guideline, as your starting point, then you set a goal. And you want to be realistic. You don't want to say, oh, well, I'm only going to spend $95 this month. Like if you've been spending $500 a month, you're not going to be able to just go in cold turkey and just do 95. I mean, sometimes it could work for people, but it doesn't help you build long-term habits when you try to just do things cold turkey like that. So start, okay, this month I'm only going to spend 450. The next month I'm going to spend 400, 300, and you take it from there, and you have to kind of attack it step by step. I think that when you do it that way, you build the muscle that will keep you going. And so when it comes to putting that together, that financial plan, just assess what you've done before, make tweaks and do it slowly, but keep consistent, and stay on top of yourself and track things. Like I used to use the apps, or not really the apps. It was like, we didn't have that many apps when I was going through this. It was more just online. I used to use Mint at the time, and it would tell me, oh, you're over budget, or this is where you are in terms of the budget that you set for the month. And I think that was really helpful. Now I don't use those things because I've gotten in such a rhythm that I no longer use it. But that's a great place to start. Use something that's going to help you, that's going to remind you, hey, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, you're over budget. So I recommend that for really setting up the plan and really executing on the plan. And then the biggest thing I think is you want to go from the mindset of, this is the debt that I have, or the number that the overspending that I've been doing, and you want to shift those dollars to surplus. And you want to say, if I'm literally going to spend $100 less on food and $100 less on clothes, I need to have $200 in my savings account by the end of the month. Right. So in a sense, you're actually keeping your dollar spend the same. You're just putting it in different places. You're putting it in places where it's going to become positive, right? Where it's going to build up and help you start to build wealth, instead of places that you're just kind of throwing it away. So kind of thinking about it in that way, I think is really helpful.
Right. I see a lot of people commenting about going out to eat, spending a lot on that. I see a comment saying, I've been using a budget binder to try and keep me on track, but using my debit card is hard to stay on track. How do you feel about auto savings as well? I know one of the things that I incorporated in my journey to financial wellness is just kind of, whenever you get paid, it automatically puts a certain amount of money into your savings account. Like you don't even have to think about it because it's already in there.
Yes. You got to do it. If you are not going to sit down at the end of the month and and do all your numbers and shift things around. If you don't want to do that, because some people just don't want to do that. And
Right.
there's nothing fine. There's nothing wrong with not being a person that loves budgeting. Like not everybody's gonna love budgeting. Maybe some people do. Some people really enjoy doing it. They like the planning and the books and or the apps and all these things. But some people realistically just don't like to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you are that type of person, you need to just figure out how you're going to streamline things. You basically have to create an assistant for yourself. And that assistant is going to be the automation in your debit, to your savings, paying your bills, all those things. So there are a lot of tools out there. Use those tools, make those tools your assistant to get stuff that you need to get done so that you can accomplish your financial goals. And these financial goals, you have to set them for the month, you have to set them for the quarter and for the year. I always, at the beginning of the year, I love to think about big numbers. I want to save $10,000 this year for this particular thing. I want to invest, $10,000 in this particular thing. Always set those big numbers and then track yourself, track the progress along the way.
Right. And you mentioned Mint earlier, but are there some other apps that you use for savings, budgeting, and just keeping track of your finances?
I don't. I right now the only thing that I really use is my personal Excel sheet. So it's like, you know, a simple spreadsheet. And I only really look at it once a month because I've gotten to the place where life is so simple and minimal from a financial perspective and also in every other way too. But I do look at it once a month. I just glance at it once a month. I plug in numbers. I make sure the accounts are where I left them or better, right? They're
Right.
building up and the net worth is increasing. But that's really as far as my budgeting goes.
Right. Okay.
But there are some really great apps out there for sure. And do you use any? I don't know. I'm trying to think of what.
I've used Mint before, but the thing is with my bank, they already I use Chase and
Mhm.
I really like the Chase app.
Yeah,
It's gotten better over the years.
yeah,
So now
yeah.
you're able to see like every month a snapshot of how much you spend, month by month, how much is in savings. Like, so I'm not sure what other, banks are doing, but I
Mhm.
don't really use it because Chase they got me.
Yeah, I do like that. I use
Yeah.
them as well, and it gives you like the little recap of what you've spent, how much you've spent, and what you've spent on. So yeah, even if using your own bank, they might have tools that you can kind of just tap into so that you don't have to add other things, because that's another thing. Like when you add a lot of components and pieces, it kind of clutters the mind, and you have more work to do and more
Right.
financial homework, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So the
Right.
more simplified it could be, the better.
Yes, I like the fact that you said that because I am not a numbers person by any means. And I know that there are other people who may be watching this who are like me, where it's like you see large numbers and you're like, ah, so I like to keep things very simple, as you mentioned. I don't like to have things in too many different places. Someone said they use Chase too. Yep. I used to make my own statement on my phone's notepad manually. Inputting all my purchases really made me understand I was sometimes spending too much. That was some time ago, but it did help me. Okay. So you pretty much just have to do what works for you, what is clear to you.
Yes.
I would say that. So what are some mistakes that you've made or you've seen others make while striving for this financial wellness that we speak of?
I think probably the most common mistake is people trying to compare themselves to others. And that can be really, really tough. You beat yourself up from a mental perspective when you try to compare yourself to other people, but it happens a lot, and I see it online a lot, and people just they literally come to me because they come to me wanting to learn about investing, and one of the first things that they say is I I'm behind. I'm not where I should be. And that already comes from a place of comparison. And I always have to break that down. And I have to say, listen, you are where you are. You have, if you have goals and ambitions to do different and be, live a different lifestyle, that's okay. But it doesn't mean that you have to use anybody's idea of what your money should look like, of what your finances should look like, how much you should have in your accounts at this age. So I think those types of that type of comparison can be really detrimental. It doesn't inspire usually. It usually just discourages people, and it makes them feel like they're not doing well enough. And for me, I don't really like to think about those things, and I always recommend when people do come to me with those ideas, it's like eliminate that. Don't worry about what's going on and where other people are. Focus on what you can do this year, because that's the thing. We got to break it down. We can't be like, well, I want to have $1 million by next year. Like, all right, let's take it easy. Let's set small goals,
Yeah.
and then work our way up. So I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that people make, and one of the most common mistakes. For me, I've made, like I mentioned, so many mistakes. Overspending. I over leverage. I didn't do enough research, and I've gotten myself in ugly situations, right? And I haven't taken advantage of low interest rates. Like when you take on debt, when you use credit cards, you want to make sure that you're getting the best rates and that you're taking advantage of the fact that you can negotiate those things.
Right.
So I think that that's something that people have to also do. Like, don't think that just because you have a card or you're working, you have a bank that you use, that it's automatically going to be the best case scenario. You have to work for that best case scenario. You have to work to be able to get the best rates, to have, the most access, so that you can either build businesses or, accomplish the goals that you want to accomplish from a financial standpoint. So I think that that's something that's also kind of like, make sure you're doing that. If you're carrying debt, get those interest rates reduced, especially because right now federal rates are super, super low. We're not making any money on savings accounts. Our money is devaluing every single day. So it's important that you understand that part of the system so that you can use it to your advantage.
Right. That's some great, great, great advice. And I see other people saying that as well. So where am I? Oh, entrepreneurship. So I read a little bit about you, of course, before reaching out to you, and I learned that you came from a family of business owners. So what advice do you have for those who are in entrepreneurship or thinking about going into entrepreneurship about, balancing their personal finances as well as their business finances?
It's tough, okay? I know that much, because when you start your own business and when you are doing your own thing, and I saw my parents do this, and my aunts and uncles, everybody in the family that really created businesses out of necessity, because they didn't have education in this country and they couldn't get jobs. So it's like, well, we got to do our own thing. We got to figure it out, but it is a tough, tough job. You work, I saw my parents work 16-hour days, and that was their normal lifestyle. And so that kind of situation can be really tough, and it creates challenges in terms of managing money and being able to kind of divide the two when you have to really take care of the business and you're buying things for your business. Because even my situation right now, there's a cross right now that is not great that I need to work on. I'm like, listen, this is going on my personal card and it should be going on the business card.
Right.
So there is always this sort of, I think, transitional period, hopefully, that you can kind of start to really separate things, right? And I'm going through that period right now, because my business was like, I started just a couple months ago. Before that, it was just all fun and entertainment, and I was creating stuff just for the fun in creating and wanting to help people. So I think that separating it is always like hashtag goals, but it definitely could be difficult at times. But establishing business credit is really important, and creating trademarks for your proprietary ideas is really important. So there's a lot of things that I just had to learn along the way. Some of this stuff is not really, even though I grew up with people that have had businesses, family that has had businesses, it wasn't necessarily, it's not the same type of business. Like right now we're talking about the technology boom, right? We're going even deeper into what technology is going to create for us and for our future. So that really didn't exist back then, right? So
Right.
so it's a different time and you have to kind of adjust to the times. But in general, I think that the same way that if you can create a survival number for your personal finances, you should also be able to create a survival number for your business finances. And
Right.
that's what's going to help you kind of, keep track and maintain and be like, okay, what are the bare needs for the business in order for it to function, in order for it to work, and for me to provide everything that I want to provide. And then in the same, it's kind of similar to what I talked about earlier from a personal perspective, you also set those goals for your business. Like,
Right.
that's something that I
Mm-hmm.
have put down on paper. You got to write these things down.
Yeah.
Where do I want to be in 3 months? Where do I want to be in 6 months? And then you also kind of think, okay, what does this look like 10 years from now? So those are the things that I kind of keep in mind when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and just to add on to that too, I always tell people who are going into entrepreneurship, start as early as you can to separate those finances, especially when it comes to tax season. You don't want to have to go through, your personal bank statements and have to separate like what were personal charges, what were business charges. Like if you have a separate card for your personal and your business, it's a lot easier for you to see, what you're spending your money on, for both dynamics.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for your accountant or your tax person or, whoever you're working with, to make sure that you're not owing the government any money.
And
Um,
it is that time of year.
yeah.
So we're going into tax season. It's going to be a lot of fun for the next couple months, and it's going to be painful for some people.
Yes.
But, you do your best. Always put money, as an entrepreneur, always put money aside because, um, until you get to the place where you're really kind of maximizing all the benefits that you get from tax write-offs, you really have to do your best to
Right.
to keep track of things, keep expenses low, and set cash aside for Uncle Sam.
Yes. Just set it aside. Don't even think about it. Like, just set it aside. Because he's coming whether we like it or
Oh yeah.
not. So let's get into your favorite topic, investing. What are some of the things you want to consider before you get into investing?
Yes. So, my particular situation is a funny one because I started investing before I had an emergency fund, before I thought about savings, before I had any sort of financial strategy. I started before any of that. And that is not the ideal situation, right? So I'm sharing this with all of y'all so that you just kind of know what my history was like. And ultimately, I think that it happened to have worked out well, but it definitely is not the situation that you want to put in if you're that you put yourself in if you're starting now. I would always say you want to have some cash reserves, whether, you have to have at least a couple months of an emergency fund for your needs. You want to definitely be in a place where you have a rhythm of how you spend money. But ultimately, I always encourage people, no matter where you are, just put a little bit of money aside to invest. You can do things simultaneously. You can build up, even if you have, let's say you just have $1,000 in your emergency fund. That's not going to get you very far, but it's something, and it's something that you're going to work up to build up to. Not a lot of people have the ability to just have 6 months of an emergency fund stashed away.
Right.
You always have to keep working on that. And even when you do get to that place, then something happens and you have to use it. So it's always kind of like an ongoing ledger that you use. And I think that people should not hold themselves back from investing, because it's really such a powerful tool. So you have to be comfortable with how much you do have in savings, but also know that you can investing nowadays is not like what it used to be, not even 5 years ago, not, and much less 10 years ago. You really needed a little bit more to get started. Now you only need $10, $12 to buy an index fund. And that's going to give you exposure to the full market. So isn't that nuts to be able to just say, okay, I'm investing, and even if it's small, you can still do it. So that's my thing with you definitely want to have cash reserves. You want to have a sort of strategy of how you're going to spend money throughout the year, and of course how you're bringing it in. That's the key right there. What money you're bringing in, how much your salary is, and any side hustles that you may have. But also just understanding that you can get started with very little.
Right. This is a side question. You
Yeah.
mentioned the term index funds, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, I'm one of these people. I've always been so intimidated when it comes to investing because of the jargon. Like financial financial jargon can be very, very, very intimidating. And I
Yeah.
think most people they don't invest because they just don't understand like what am I doing? So
Yeah.
how did you teach yourself all of the jargon and all of the fancy words that,
Yes.
go into investing?
And that's a great, and I think you actually answered this question. So thank you for, or asked it earlier and I didn't answer it. But I really started with investopedia.com. Like I subscribed probably a decade ago to their daily letter. And it was just a term a day. And I still to this day read that term a day. And that was something that even though it takes not even 30 seconds to read the term a day, the knowledge starts compounding in your mind. And although you may not understand all the words that are in the definition, it's like, and sometimes you read certain things that confuse you even more. But ultimately, like those, just getting into it and slowly kind of reading a little bit more about it, it helps. And it helped me a lot. And like I said, I still read it to this day, what their daily term a day is. And that's kind of how I leaned into it. And then ultimately, like when you get really, really serious about it, you're gonna take time. Like before, it was only 30 seconds a day. Now I spend a good hour reading on the things that I'm interested in, and of course, reading more about investing because it's also the work that I do now. So
Right.
you lean further and deeper into your journey, the more you start learning and the more interested you become in it. So for me, definitely investopedia.com is always a great place to start. And you can just, schedule that 1 minute that you'll need per day to read that term, and that's it. And then you slowly go from there. So yes, I understand your point that it can be confusing and it's crazy, and there's a lot of words that are used. And the thing about investing in general is that there are a lot of different strategies.
Right.
So what I do to really simplify for people, it's like you want to focus on just having full market exposure, and you don't want to think about buying individual stocks and having to analyze every single company. You want to just be able to participate. Like that was the word that we used right at the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. You want to participate in the market to some degree, to some extent. Many of us already do it through 401ks, and those 401ks are mutual funds, target date funds that have a mixed bag. So it's like a basket of things, right? So pick up your basket. Think about index funds. If this is the first time you've heard this term, you can, ask me about it right when we get off of this, and I can tell you more about it. I also do have a workshop coming up on the 22nd. Like I love teaching that because it's just the simple path to wealth. And those are words from a book by J.L. Collins that I love. And it's also the inspiration behind the work that I do, is about keeping your investment strategy very simple.
I love it. Investopedia, everyone.
Yes.
And this is just like as you're talking, one thing that I'm hearing is just like we're in charge of our own, growth. Like that's why, I work in talent acquisition for 6 years, and I always tell people you are in control of your professional growth.
Yeah.
Like you get the basic training that you need, but you're really in charge of, doing the extra work that it takes to not just succeed but be excellent.
Mm.
And I feel like it's the same theme even in finance and investing, right? If you want to really be like this big investor, or you just want to make sure you understand those concepts, then you have to take control of knowing those terms and actually understanding those terms, so that you're able to implement them. So thank you for that, Julie. Um, Alrighty. So when you started to invest, how did you know where and how much? Because I think a lot
Mm.
of people don't know. Like you mentioned starting off as low as $10 to $12, but how do you know like where to go to even begin investing your money?
So the short answer to that is going to be 10% of your income. Like if you're bringing in $100,000 a year, you should be investing $10,000. That's the short answer. That's the overly simplified answer. and kind of my recommendation, if I had to give you a 10-second answer. Now, to go a little deeper into that, it really is going to entail what your goals are, because depending on what your goals are from an investment standpoint, investing really has to do with three big pillars: investing in the stock market, real estate, and business. And so if you have the ambition of buying property, that's something that requires a, a large capital, a large amount of capital, like a down payment, right? You're going to need $50,000, for example, on a down payment on a house. So you have to kind of understand what the big picture is, and then hone in into what can I do on a monthly basis to get to that goal, and how many years is it going to take me to accomplish that goal. So, realistically, it'll take me 3 years to save up a down payment for a home. When it comes to investing in the stock market, like I mentioned earlier, literally with 12 bucks, you can get started right now, today. Just ask me how, and I'll tell you. When it comes to the stock market, you also want to set goals. So you want to set retirement goals. And my friend Tiffany, the budgetista, talks about building wealth. So having two separate goals, like a retirement investing goal and a wealth building goal. And how do you kind of think about the two? And investing for retirement is literally the simplest way to build up your net worth, and to invest into the stock market, participate in the stock market without overly complicating it, because our jobs make it very simple. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, just sign this form and here it is. So a lot of times people will say, oh, at least get the match from your job. And what I want to tell people, that is not enough. I don't know why it continues to be like such a thing that gets ingrained in people's mind. Like, oh, at least a match, at least a match. 3 or 4% is not enough. I said like that at the beginning. My answer was at least 10%, right? You have to put a significant amount of money in order for you to think about, okay, when I actually retire, how much money am I going to have? Do I want to have $500,000? Is that, good enough for me in terms of how I spend money? Maybe it is. If you spend very little money and you're a very simple person, $500,000 is enough. And that money is just going to continue to work for you, even as you take money out of those accounts. But for other people, maybe it's like $1 million or $2 million, depending on their lifestyle. So understanding what that ultimate goal is for retirement is really important. And it helps you kind of work backwards and say, well, in order for me to get to that $2 million goal, I need to invest $1,500 a month, into my retirement accounts. And now that's just the retirement aspect of it. Then there's the wealth building aspect of it. If I really want to pass down generational wealth, I need to put $1,500 into retirement, and then I need to put another $1,500 into a brokerage account, so that money is money that my grandchildren or great grandchildren will eventually benefit from. So you have to start with what you can do. If it's a small amount, I started with $50 a month. It was nothing. It might have been like, I don't think I was even getting the full. I might have been getting the full match. I don't know. I don't remember. But it was so small.
Right.
And only when I started to recognize, wait a second, it's working. I like it. It's growing. The account is growing, and I like that, because I no longer have to do as much work. I no longer have to earn income to have this income generate itself within the account. But then I also realized this isn't enough. I gotta do more if I really want to build up the account to be bigger. So those are the types of things that you want to consider, think about. Even if you start small, get a feel for it, start learning those terms. 1 minute a day is all it takes to start compounding knowledge. I talk a lot about compounding interest in investment accounts, but something that's more important than compounding interest is compounding knowledge, and how you use that knowledge to make better decisions. So set those goals for yourself. 1 minute a day to read, one investment term a day, and setting a goal of $50, $200, whatever dollar amount you can do right now, and be consistent. Don't get scared when the market starts acting crazy, because the market acts crazy all the time. So don't get scared. Stay consistent and stick to your strategy.
Right. Someone said, because of Investing Latina, I do 15%.
That's my cousin. Thank you.
my last question for you is just going to be you've built a strong community here on Instagram and on YouTube with your Ask Me Money Things series. So, where do you see Investing Latina in the next 5 years?
I'm so excited for Investing Latina as a brand and then the Investing Workshop as a business, because I love to inspire people, make jokes, have a good time. That's always been my personality. The people that know me, like my cousin's on here, she knows. Like I'm
President.
Hi, prima. Hi, Eti. Listen, like, I love to have fun and I love to share that on my page on Investing Latino. The Investing Workshop is the educational part of it. And that's where we get serious and we learn about investing and we learn about different strategies. So for me, being able to grow that business and reach more people is a big goal for the next, couple of years. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And for me, I'm not seeing it as um, something that's going to happen overnight. This is something that I have a 30-year business plan on, which sounds crazy. But ultimately, like that 30-year mission is really to get more people, more women, people of color, more Latinos investing in the stock market. It's not something that we're very comfortable with. And there is always a lot of jargon that regular people, don't have the time to think about or understand or learn about. So I really like to have these workshops so that they're just an hour and a half long and then a Q&A, and you get what you need to get. You start investing and you keep it going, you keep living your best life. So that's how I like to keep it extremely simplified and easy for everybody that comes. We've had so many students come already, and the next one is coming up on the 22nd, so I'm really excited about that.
I love it. I love it. So I see some questions coming in, and I
Yeah,
want to make sure that we get to your questions. But before we wrap up our dialogue, I'm going to play a little fun game with you. Is that okay?
yeah, yeah, sure, sure.
It's nothing scary or crazy, I promise. um, so prior to Career Girl Chats, as Julie knows, I send the questions to all of my guests in advance, just so they know what we're talking about and they know what to expect. But here I have a bag of some questions that were not on our prepared list. Just because I want to get to learn you better. And I'm sure that you
Yeah,
have people here who've maybe been following you for the past year or so, and they don't have the answers to these questions. And I'm sure they would love to know. So
yes, let's
you
do
guys
it.
help me come up with a name for this game. I have absolutely no name for it. I told you earlier
Hmm.
I was going to come up with a clever name. I could not think of it. So
The
I'm just going to call
question,
it the
the
mystery
mystery
bag of
question.
questions.
Oh, it says mystery on it. Okay,
Yes, so I'm just going to
question
shake
bag.
it up, and there are going to be 3 questions in here. Okay. All right. So, do you prefer in person or virtual work, and why? It's the first
Oh,
question.
so I, damn, I don't have a preference because obviously we've had to adjust. I love being around people. I'm a people person. I do like my quiet time. I like being at home and recharging, but I get a lot of my energy from other people, and I like being around good people, surround myself with inspiring and fun people. So I love and I miss that. We don't have
Yeah.
that nowadays. But I do feel like we have found ways to replace that with
Mm-hmm.
technology. So I love it. I go to happy hours through Zoom, and it's also fun. And teaching now, since I teach at FIT, I've had to do everything online. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but I still feel like there are parts that are missing of that
Yeah.
real life
Human
interaction.
connection.
Yeah, but it's still, we're making it work. So hopefully this will end pretty soon, but I do love aspects of both of them.
Yes, I wish there was like some way where after all of this is over, they can create a hybrid work week.
Yeah,
Like
that's what we need,
some
for
days we're
sure.
virtual, some days we're in person. I guess depending on what you do. All right, here's the second question.
Okay.
Ooh, if you weren't in your career, what other profession would you pursue?
You know what's so funny about that question? When I was thinking about careers as a 12-year-old in middle school, being from New York, we have this huge book of high schools. And I'm like
Yep.
flipping through the books. You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm flipping through the books. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess this is how we decide what we're going to be when we grow up. And the options and the two things that I picked were working in the fashion industry and working in law. Like being a lawyer. And I think that if I didn't do what I did, like if I didn't end up having a career in fashion that now has become a career really on education, I would probably still try to explore that. I think that could be fun and interesting because it was something that as a 12-year-old I thought that I could possibly do. So who knows? Maybe I'll become a lawyer in the third part of my life.
Maybe. What kind of law would you practice?
I think maybe like defense law or something. My mom has always said that I'm very good, like argumentative, for better or for worse. So maybe something like that. It'd be
Yes.
fun.
Someone
That
said,
was a
cue the
great
Law and
question.
Order theme song. Dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun,
I love it.
dun.
That's one of my favorite shows, girl. Forget it. As soon as I hear it, I start dancing. I know
Yes.
you've seen the TikTok, the people dancing to it.
All right, one last question, and then we are going to get to your questions, guys.
Okay.
There's one here in particular that I really want to know, but I don't think I'm going to get it.
Okay. Hopefully you do.
Ooh, most intimidating part of your career?
Intimidating. I think in general, when we are around experts, like people that have been doing it a very long time, it can be very intimidating. It's like, you know, uh, what do I say? I don't want to mess up. So I think that that always is kind of a situation where you're just kind of like, you just have to listen. And luckily, even though I can be a very talkative person, I also know when to be quiet and to just listen. So I really do. It could be intimidating. Like I've had meetings with really amazing people in this space, and I've developed relationships with really well-known people that have been doing this for literally like decades. And it's a little nerve-wracking, and you're like, you're a tiny bit nervous to say
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But then it's always about like relationships, and it's always about um, when it comes to intimidation in general, I think you just have to do your best to get a little comfortable.
Yeah.
You're of course gonna feel a little bit of nerves, but just try to get comfortable, try to remain yourself, and that's how I get past those type of situations. But yeah, I think that being around like a pro for and being someone that has been doing this particular thing for a short amount of time can be very intimidating.
Yeah, I deal with that too. But one of the ways that I combat that is just telling myself there's a reason why I'm in the room, right?
Yeah,
I may not have as much experience as these other people, but I'm here, and there's a reason why I'm here, and there's a value that I offer to this space. So that's one way that I kind of like calm those nerves and just reaffirm my value,
I love
when I
that.
feel
It's
that.
so true. And the
Mhm.
fact is that we all deserve that in life. We all deserve to be in rooms that we want to be in and
Right.
that we aspire to be in. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. A lot of dialogue going on in this comment section. I see there's a question here, so let's. Okay.
I'll answer this investing question if you don't mind.
Yeah,
Would
sure.
you
If you
would you
want to
advise
scroll, you can scroll up too, right?
Yeah. It
Go
says, would
for
you
it.
advise to open a Roth IRA in addition to my 401k? So yes, for C. Lopez, the one at work, your 401k is a super powerful tool. The most important thing about that tool is that your limit is very high, $19,500. If you are at that limit and you're crushing it and you're putting all that money into that account, you do want to, of course, if you have more money, explore other types of accounts. Another reason, but you don't have to, you can still just stick to the 401k. But reasons to open Roth IRAs is for the additional benefits that they have. You can use, after 5 years, you can use your Roth IRA to buy property. You can use it for, if God forbid, you become disabled, you can use it for childbirth expenses or for child or for adoption expenses. So there are a lot of really great benefits to a Roth IRA. I have probably 3 or 4 videos breaking down all of those accounts of 401ks and 403bs, IRAs, Roth IRAs, and then mega backdoor IRA, which is for people that make over a certain threshold and have to do a loop around to contribute to those accounts. But I think that depending on what your goals are, if you do think that you can use a Roth IRA for those benefits, great, go for it. Open up, and remember that you can open up your IRA regardless if you have a 401k or not. It's called an individual retirement arrangement. So do your thing, open it up, and if it matches what your goals are, go for it. And I hope that I have a sense that you already understand the tax difference between the two of them. 401k is a pre-tax account and Roth IRA is a post-tax account.
Right. And I have a question here for you, Julie, in the comment section. I'm not sure if you guys can see it.
Yes. The price of the workshop is $199. Yes. So my workshop is $199, and what people have done because of the price is that they've used PayPal, and with PayPal you could do installment payments, and you can pay it in a couple of payments in the time frame. I think it's 4 different payments, so you could pay it so that it's $50 per every 2 weeks or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what their cadence is, but you can do that via PayPal. Overall, I put a lot of energy into the workshop, and at this point, thousands of people have taken it, which is crazy to me. And I spend time with people to make sure that beyond the workshop, they have all the resources that they need. So that's the pricing that works for everything that I'm providing. You can kind of see the details on my page, but you get a live workshop. You actually get a prep sheet beforehand as soon as you buy it. So it tells you kind of like a little to-do checklist of what you need to do to come best prepared for the workshop. You get the recording, you get the PowerPoint, you get time with me one-on-one. So there's a lot that comes into it, and that's the reason for it.
Wow. And there was the second part to the question. I'm not sure. I can't see the full question, but I can see it when I click on my personal comment box. It just says, also, I don't know if it applies to someone like me who has zero knowledge in finance and investing. There's also more to it, but I'm not able to see
Yeah,
it.
it does,
Yeah.
because this is an intro class. So if you have zero knowledge, this is an intro for it. And you can definitely get really everything that you'll need in order to understand how the market functions, what are the different strategies that are out there, because I cover the different types. I overview the types of strategies, and then we stick to a deep dive of the index fund and ETF strategy, so that people can really learn how to assess different funds. So it is absolutely for beginners. So if you can do it, come join. But listen, if you can't do the workshop at the moment, I have so many videos on YouTube. Investing Latina, youtube.com/investing Latina. I literally spent a whole month last year creating videos every single day, and a lot of content is on there. So it's not an hour and a half. It's definitely going to take 10 hours to go through all of them, but it's a really great place to start for people that are just kind of, dipping their toes in, or for example, they can't come to the workshop.
Yes. Are there any other, I don't know, how do I get rid of this? All right. Are there any other questions, guys?
Oh, thank you, Carmen. Yes, I can vouch for her class. It's 100% worth it. Julie's an amazing teacher. Thank you. Yes, I wish I had all my testimonials from everybody, but I will at some point, hopefully, and I can share them with everyone. But people have really enjoyed it, and ultimately, what I love the most about it is the community that we build. Like, we become friends, all right? And we're like, okay, what are you investing in now? What does your strategy look like? Because that's the beauty too. Like, even though we're learning the same principles, everybody's portfolio looks different based on their risk tolerance, based on their family needs. Like, a lot goes into play, and you have to make decisions for yourself. We're not in a place anymore where we need somebody in a suit to tell us how we need to invest. That's not the world that
that.
we're in a world where you need to take matters into your own hands. You have to roll up your sleeves. You have to put time in to educate yourself and to invest consistently. That's how we build wealth. Don't get left behind because you are afraid of it. Go for it. Don't be, do what you got to do to kind of get yourself past the little humps.
Right. Um, Another question. Do you have books you can recommend? I see you actually put up a post about this yesterday.
Yeah, I did. I have a bunch of books that I love. I'm featured in this book by my friend Bola, who is the founder of Clever Girl Finance, and it's called Grow Your Money. And I talk about investing in this book. So that's a big recommendation because it's so easy to read and you can just really kind of, it breaks it down for you, So if you're a reader and you want to learn in this way, this is a great book. Another great book that I love is the one that I mentioned earlier is Simple Path to Wealth by J.Lo Collins. It's a little denser, and it goes into numbers and stuff like that, but if you are that type of person, it's a great book for you. And it also gives you kind of like the idea or the details on how simple it can actually be.
Yes. I see another question. I'm saving to buy a house. Should I invest that money meanwhile? Will I be taxed for pulling out the money?
Yes. So if you want to buy a house and it's in a short time frame, and by short, I would say like 3 years, because most people can say, oh, I want to buy a house, and they do it the next month. Most people say they want to buy a house and they have a little bit of time before they can get to the place where they saved, a percentage for their down payment. If you're a first time home buyer, you can really start with a low amount, which is great. Explore those options. You can only do it one time, so make sure that you take advantage of that. But if you are planning to buy a home within 3 years, it's not really recommended. I don't recommend that you invest your money. I personally do want to buy property and I have that money sitting in cash because I have a plan to use it in a short time frame. If you're thinking, oh, I could wait 5 years, I could wait 10 years, then yeah, you should definitely invest it because that's a significant amount of time that the money can then work for you while it's in the market. And yes, you do have to pay taxes if you're using a brokerage account on the money that you take out. But we also do have a little bit of a window. Like you could take out up to $80,000 without having to have like these huge tax bills. So it's something that you should consider. Your time, the timeline is what you really have to consider at the end of the day. When do I want to buy? Do I have enough time where it's worth me investing into the market, into the stock market, to then pay any taxes that I may be liable for and then put it into the property? If that's your situation, then yeah, you can go for it. If it's a short time frame and you want to do this soon because you want to start a family, it's not, you might as well keep it in cash and just be ready and be on the lookout for those opportunities because real estate can be a little challenging, and right now the prices are high, but there's always opportunity. Don't let that stop you from looking for those little pockets of opportunity. And like I said, explore first time home buyer loans, apply to different lenders so that you can compare. All those things are really important, and I do have a video about that. It's like the 3 tips that I give for getting started with real estate. That's also on YouTube.
Yay. Someone's asking, will your workshop be pre-recorded? Where can they view it if they want to see it at a later date?
Yes. So if you come to the workshop, well, if you buy the ticket, you get the recording. So a lot of people that have come to workshop before haven't come to the literal workshop. Because of time constraint. If that's your situation, you're going to get the recording the next day, and you can watch it through the private link that I send.
What was the name of the first book?
Grow Your Money, and then The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. I should get a hard copy of it. I'm going to send him a message on Twitter. Be like, hey, can I send me an actual copy of your book? He's awesome. We were both nominated. We were both nominated for an award earlier, late last year. And
Ooh, yes.
it's a great book.
I love it. Do you believe in Ivy League schools being better, even if it means loaning the money?
Yeah. I think in order to go to to make the decision to take on a lot of debt to go to an Ivy League school, you have to be super intentional with what you want to do. I think that, and the truth of the matter is, when it comes to college, most people go in not knowing what they want to do. And even Ivy Leagues, most people go into Ivy Leagues and they're just like, oh, I did great in high school, I got into Ivy League, maybe my parent had gone here or someone I know had gone here, and now I'm here and I still don't really know what I want to do. And then people end up graduating from Ivy Leagues and still not know what they want to do.
Yes.
If you look at the statistics, it's still a very small percent of people, even from Ivy League educated people, that end up doing, like, really big things, or, so is it worth it? That's a tough question to kind of answer. I think that if you're going to invest into something, yes, investing into education is super important. I'm all for it, but you have to be very strategic.
Yeah.
And you have to also understand if it's a fit. That's how I look at schools. Like, I chose my school because I had already taken classes there before. I knew that I liked it. I liked the vibes. That's how I ended up picking my school. And it was a state school that I didn't have to pay a lot of money to attend to. So that's kind of my thing about Ivies. They're expensive. So you got to know, the best thing is know what you're going in for, and also understand that it has a lot to do with you're paying for the club, the community. So if you keep that in mind, it'll help you make the decision.
Right. What's the best way to go for investing for children's education? He's a toddler now. I'm thinking about college. That's a great.
Oh, yeah, that is a great question. So if you really want your child to go to college and that's something that you're like adamant about, using a 529 is a good option. You'll make money off of it. Usually they use target date funds. So the account will end up growing, and especially depending how much you're committed to it and how much you're putting into it, you can really rack up the account and have, $80,000 easily without too much of a strain. And if you are even more focused, you can have a $200,000 529 account for your child. So if that's something that you're super, super adamant about, then I think it definitely makes sense to use that. If you're wishy-washy about it and you're like, if they don't want to go to college, I'm fine with that, I don't mind, then the best thing that you can do is really invest for wealth building, and using a brokerage account, buying, you can buy index funds as an investment, you can buy dividend producing stocks as the investment, and just let that baby grow until it becomes a teenager, and then your child will continue to invest into it in adulthood and build that up. So there's like really two main ways to kind of go about it.
I love it. All right. I see some other questions. Let me.
Oh, someone asked if there's a time limit for the video. Yes, there is actually. That's a good question because I kind of forgot about that. But you get 30 days to rewatch it and replay it. But trust me, the workshop is a lot of fun. It's simplified, and we hang out, and I answer all the questions. So it's a really great class, if I do say so myself.
Brag. I have a business coach who always says it's not bragging if you did it.
Yeah.
So you've done it, you're doing it, you can brag.
Yeah. I love all these questions. So great.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of people on this live who are familiar with you. Your crew came out strong tonight. But for those that are new to you, where can they, how can they reach you? How can they ask you any more questions? Are they able to slide in your DMs? Like, what's going on?
Yes. So you can and I'm going to put the number in here. You can slide into my text messages, 917-636-4049, and you can ask me any money question. Sometimes people don't ask the question publicly and they want to ask the question privately. You can absolutely do it that way. So you can send me a text message and I respond to those money questions. If I don't know the answer, I send you to the resources of places where you will get the answer. You can do that. You can also reach me via email, investinglatina@gmail.com. I teach workshops. If you want me to come to your workplace, I can teach workshops at your workplace. That's kind of a hack for you to not pay for my workshop and have your company pay for it, which is really cool. And and then I'm on YouTube, youtube.com/investing Latina. I have some really great videos planned for YouTube, and that's where all the free content lives. So check it out.
Well, Julie, I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You definitely blessed us with some gems. I have a lot of homework to do,
Yeah.
but I'm really excited about this new journey. I hope that this episode was very informative to everyone that was watching. If you would like to watch the playback, if you came in late and you would like to watch the playback, please go to youtube.com/careergirl lifestyle. We have Career Girl Chats every Wednesday with professional women in various industries. And we talk about so many topics, not just finance, but we talk about real estate, we talk about motherhood. Next week, we're actually going to be talking about attracting love as an ambitious woman. That's going to be a great episode. We have a dating coach who's going to be swinging on by and a special guest to talk about relationships. But this season is going to be amazing. And I'm so happy that it started off with you, Julie. This was such an amazing episode. Thank you so much again.
Yes. And thank you for having this. Thank you for reaching out. Y'all follow Career Girl Lifestyle. Anna, you're so sweet. And it has been a pleasure. You prepped for this. Like, this was the most prepared thing that I've done all month probably.
I'm so happy to hear that.
So thank you for having that drive, that ambition, and being such a great host. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night, ladies. Julie, let's stay connected. Be blessed, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Good night. Keep investing.